Alright, so before we go into this Patreon request, in case I sound funny or anything or sniffle, it's just allergies. Ugh, they are bothering me bad today. But I wanted to get these videos out real quick, so let's get started. So our first Patreon request comes from Nolan Unejo, who asked me to do an interesting story, like an interesting take on the old man kind of story arc, which is not really. Basically, what this is a it's kind of a Godzilla Cataclysm meets Old Man Logan kind of story, which is centered around Augurius, the last Kaiju. So before we go any further, if anyone out there wants to send me a Patreon request to do here on YouTube, just hit the link below, head on over to my Patreon. You guys can hit the 4th tier, where you guys start sending me requests for videos to do on YouTube, and also check out all the stuff over on Patreon as well. I'm going to be having some more stuff uploaded. It's just my life got a little chaotic behind the scenes. I've been meaning to upload more videos, and I will soon. Anyway, so let's get started with this story. So this story begins 50 years ago in the past, where essentially what happened is that the Exilians have gathered together all the evil Kaiju, both from space and on Earth, and unleashed them in one big assault on Earth. And it wasn't like before, where it's just like, we're just gonna have them attack and then Godzilla will come. No, the first plan of action was go get Godzilla first. The Exilians actually lured Godzilla away from Monster Island and from the other ones before they began their invasion. Before they did anything, this is where, they realized we fucked up, because every time we tried to invade the planet with monsters, Godzilla's there, and he's always there to stop us. So we're going to take Godzilla out of the equation this time. So what they did was that Godzilla was lured away to a secluded spot, and then the Exilians just unleashed all these monsters they had under their control. Not just like Ghidorah and Gigan, but also like Destroya, Biollante, Megalon, Hedorah, and they all attack Godzilla at once. And Godzilla, to his credit, does put up a valiant fight, but he's fighting all of his his entire rogues gallery all at once, and Godzilla is killed because of it. With Godzilla out of the way, the other Kaiju didn't. The only one who really put up a fight was more of Mothra, and even then, that wasn't much. So the remaining Kaiju were the Exilians, and the remaining Kaiju they had under their control wiped out the other monsters and more or less conquered the world. The problem is that the other Kaiju, like Ghidorah and the others, grew resilient to their controls and turned on the Exilians. So the Exilians didn't even, they won, but then they ended up getting killed anyway by their own monsters. So it's been 50 years, and the Ghidorah and the other dark monster, evil Kaiju, have decimated the planet. Human population is just left to ruin and living in little tribes, and some who even worship their wrathful gods out of fear of these guys could fucking kill us, so how about we don't piss them off? And that's what the world is for the past 50 years. That's what it's always been for the past 50 years, is just we live in fear of Ghidorah, Destroya, all of these monsters. So, however, during these 50 years, there have been little pockets of civilization who've been living under, out of the radar of the monsters, who, the major Kaiju, the Kaiju now live in, the ruins of major cities. Ghidorah has now taken up Tokyo, Destroya has taken New York, Gigan now rules, now has Shanghai, Hedorah has India, we have Space Godzilla, who has taken Paris, Biollante has taken London. all of these monsters down. It's not like they're ruling over the city. It's more like, hey, we just made a territory out of these major cities. But however, we follow one character by the name of Ichiro, and Ichiro was a young scientist who he wasn't around in the 50 years ago when the kaiju ruled, but he was born into a world of it. And for the past 20 years, he has been living in the shadow of these kaiju. However, what he's been trying to do is find a way to. He's been living. His family, his clan, his little human tribe, have been living in an old G-Force base and in the ruins of Mechagodzilla, Mogera. All of those were destroyed too. Those were all destroyed in the final battle too. So there is no Mechagodzilla either. And they've been living in the ruins of this old Mechagodzilla depot, this old Mechagodzilla base. And what Ichiro is trying to do is try to replicate the Exilian's sonic controls and make the kaiju leave, make the others just go off world or just go somewhere else, just leave, just go into hibernation or something. However, his thing has an adverse effect. Because it turns out not too far away in there's this huge mountain not too far away from the tribe, and it's actually grown over a kaiju, the last of the remaining of Godzilla's allies, Augurius. Turns out when shit hit the fan, Augurius was among the monsters to fight this kaiju war. But he watched he was basically one of the last ones standing and ran off. After everyone, Rodan, King Caesar, Manda, Kumanga, all of them were wiped out. And they were all killed, all of them, Mothra, Rodan, all of them, dead. By the end of it, Augurius, who was beaten and bloodied, was all that's left. He was just all limping and stuff. He was just left for dead already. So he just crawled away and was more or less I'm just going to lay here and die. But the world grew around him, and now he lived inside a mountain. But now that sonic device has now woken him up, and he's now gotten up. He goes to the base, and now Ichiro's holy shit, it's one of the monsters. And one of the old men, his grandfather's no, it's Augurius. I thought he died 50 years ago. So yeah, Augurius, Ichiro believes that now they have a monster to fight, to fight these dark monsters. And what Ichiro's grandfather tells him is, you don't understand. Augurius is a tenacious little monster, but he wasn't the strongest. He's never won a fight in his life. So now we... but now we have a protector. Ichiro's now we have a protector though. Now we have someone who will protect us from these monsters. And Augurius is just kind of because Augurius is just kind of I'm just here now, because he has and he's now he's still dealing with the wounds he felt on that day. He's still he's busted up. He's not exactly the strongest. But this has given Ichiro, now that he has they have a protector now there can be some hope. He also now looks at Mechagodzilla, which is Kiryu. He wants to reconstruct Kiryu, and also give this way they can actually fight against these monsters. He also has another idea. Ichiro has multiple ideas that are going. One, he's got Augurius now. His family has protection from these monsters. Two, he wants to rebuild Kiryu to help battle. But there's a third thing, and this is something that he has been this was his last resort, his Papa Roach, this is my last resort kind of thinking. He believes that he believes that what he could do is reconstruct the oxygen destroyer and use it in such a way that maybe he can get all the monsters together and then unleash the oxygen destroyer and kill them all at once. he was working on a sonic device, but after waking up Augurius, he's like, this is probably gonna backfire. And sure enough, it does, because, Gigan arrives shortly thereafter, after the sonic device, and this leads him to going, I didn't want to do the oxygen destroyer thing, because that's so unstable, but now I see no choice. But yeah, Gigan arrives, Gigan and Augurius do battle, and Augurius, even though he's wounded, he's now just like, if you kill me, cool. If I kill you, awesome. And Augurius actually does during the fight, because Gigan tries to like rev up his belly buzzsaw, and Augurius like stops, and he's like, oh no, you're not getting me this time. He actually burrows under Gigan, and what he does is actually tunnel under him, and Gigan's just like, what the fuck? And he makes the ground weaker around Gigan through the tunneling, and sinks Gigan into the ground, and now that he's underground, Gigan has a tougher time moving, so Augurius actually, like, goes for his face and just mauls him. From there, Ichiro and his tribe rebuild Kiryu, and he also needs, but he does need one thing. He needs, like, there's a certain component that's in Tokyo that he needs to create this oxygen destroyer. So Kiryu and Augurius both go to Tokyo to find this last piece of element. And in order to do, and yeah, that would mean colliding with Ghidorah. So they get there. Ichiro, who's piloting Kiryu, has to like turn it off real quick, go find the component, while Augurius distracts Ghidorah, and it doesn't go so well. It's also at this point where Ichiro uses the sonic device after getting the last component, uses it on the sonic device on a massive scale, brings all the remaining kaiju to Tokyo, where Augurius is battling Ghidorah. However, when all the monsters arrive, he's just like, deuces, and tunnels out of there right as the oxygen destroyer gets unleashed. Or should I call it the Ultra Oxygen Destroyer? So yeah, all the monsters are killed from that one hit. And Augurius does manage to get away. So Ichiro and his tribe are now like, yay, yeah, we're free, we're finally free. And Augurius tunnels his way back, and he's just like... So, Augurius is... if this was a comic, if this was an actual comic by IDW, I would have a moment where, like, it would be like such a dumb moment, but it would be like something you would see in a comic like this, where Augurius, like, looks off to the distance and sees, like, the ghosts of Godzilla and the other monsters, like Mothra and Rodan and all of them, and he's just like, So now Augurius is the last kaiju. And yeah, his whole thing is, and I would even have like an epilogue where it's Ichiro, who's now a grandfather himself, telling them that like the world is forever protected by, there was a time where a monster named Godzilla protected Earth, but now we live in a world where our protector's name is Augurius. So there you go, guys. You guys tell me in the comments below, what did you guys think of this story? Of this Patreon request. And once again, I'd like to thank Nolan Unejo for his continued patronage, as well as this Patreon request. And once again, if you guys would like to have a Patreon request done, just hit the link below, head on over to my Patreon. You guys can start sending me videos to do here on Patreon. Other than that, hope y'all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.